Lukey. Got a great show for everybody coming up. Great podcast you've got to click to. Of course, you want to hear the whole version of it. But it's about Skyfall, that's right, syndrome, and aluminium oxide, yes, and life colloid, and the body's shock terrain, yes. Of course, you've got heavy metals. We've started to be talking a bit more about this, and you've got all that coming out of the sky, falling, of course, silently on the terrain, and a shock going on where that is. Of course, everybody can see that, trees and what could be survived is something that's just more aluminium resistant or something. But aluminium oxide and barium and strontium and titanium, these are nanoscale sort of particulate which comes from that fly ash, and that it's a typical thing that it's sort of really, where it's looked at, you could see that it's deposited sort of fly ash and things, which barium and strontium and titanium and all of those things is really nanoscaled and inhaled, absorbed, and lodged more deep in the fascia of the brain and connective tissue. And life colloid system really is facing all of that debris and facing the breakdown of the conductivity that we really have, and it's a collapse more of a magnetic coherence. So trees, wouldn't you think that they fail first in my relationship where the trees are? And then animals and all species, you see. So you don't think that we and our species, we can be following what that is? You've got musculoskeletal pain evermore. You've got sudden, more jerky types of motion. You've got seizures and agitation and things that's going on like that, and cognitive fog. Isn't these the signposts of an overexcited sort of aluminium burden? And that's not being sweated out or broken down, which it could be. So that particulate that's falling invisible, and there's a density that's rising where satellite debris is, and you've got all that fly ash and the aerosol. And it's really like a strained atmosphere. Got a bit of a glow up there, you see, when you're looking down, when you're flying around in the airplane. So you're looking out the window and you're seeing a big haze there. And dealing with all of that synthetic and catalytic types of charge as a bit of a disruptive type of toxin. So the body really does react, and chronic inflammation, and you've got hepcidin, which is an enzyme, and you get this getting spiked and iron trapped and energy collapsed. Mitochondria lose its adenosine triphosphate output, and calcium is fired inside the neuron, and neurotransmitter balance gets distorted. So glutamate goes up, GABA goes down, and excitation doesn't have a break. And so it's a shock wave where the nervous system is, and it becomes a common experience where the immune cells are to have not necessarily kept their orientation. So a magnetic guidance can be faulted where all of that is. You could see it. Life colloid movement becomes erratic, and external shifted fields. Fascia comes to be more stiffened things. The breath pattern could have changed. Hypercapnia could have jumped in there, and someone does not no longer nose breathing. So the breath really is a pattern where change can be, and hypercapnia really strips the blood of its proper negative charge, which it should have. It gets it to be far more than what it should, and the terrain where the inside the cell is become less, more acidic. So that terrain and the internal terrain really mimics the external atmosphere, an overloadedness and oxidized magnetic sort of confusion, which is gone on where all particulates been dispersed, for weather engineering and things. So life colloid really otherwise is a passive and directionally galvanic tacticus, meaning it sort of travels along magnetic field lines and things which is left in the body. So North negative streams really guide the healing, where the terrain restores alkalinity more where the tissue is, and the blood becomes more acidic, which it should. You've got a proper repair dynamic and a current going on, and it's magnicity, which was really the real driver of cellular conditioning of your movement and attention and cohesion that's felt. And life food and lifestyle really becomes a shield more, where you could have correction and lowering this toxic load, okay? So restoring the breath and the chemistry where you are and replenishing magnesium and stabilizing this polarity, it's really establishing this internal north negative drive where things are, and the conversation should be shifting ever more from the, just a fear per se of what's going on where the Skyfall out is, and doing what one can immediately, of course, to master the internal terrain. And what this show really is revealing is really how a toxin can be existed to the life colloid, where that is inside the body, and the density of where things are. And just in a single equation, it's really about you being able to reclaim your terrain. Yes. So click and go to the larger version of this really to learn more about everything. Otherwise, maybe you'd love to go to jubbdavid.com and make an appointment. Anyway, love you guys. Catch up to you in a future show.